Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Ontario Knife Company Carter Prime, a titanium frame lock from the Ontario Knife Company, the same folks who do the Rat, right? Didn't even know about this up until just a couple of months ago. This knife has actually been around for a while. I will link it down in the description. It's not a super expensive knife. It's a titanium frame lock using D2, and it uses bearings. Check this out. All right? Wow, fall shut action. It's actually using not caged bearings. They're loose bearings, which is something we're going to talk about. This knife was sent to me by my buddy Connor, who is one of the mods on my Discord, and he does an excellent job. Thank you so much, Connor, for sending this. It's because of people like Connor that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thank you so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you'd like to get your hands on some cool stickers and some other exclusive benefits, there's of course a link right down in the description. You're supporting me in the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the Carter Prime coming in, and I believe it's 8 inches. Yeah, 8 inches on the dot. Blade length is coming in at about 3.3. Cutting edge is about 3 1/4. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1? The Ontario Knife Company Rat. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at about 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall. About the same. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7 1/4 inches overall. And last but not least, the Mini Griptilian. Mini Griptilian coming in at 6.75 inches overall. How's the action of this guy? Well, like I said, it's using loose bearings. If you have never dealt with loose bearings before, the first thing you're gonna, your first response is gonna go, "Wow, it's really smooth." Yeah, there are a ton of bearings in here. I actually bought one of these because he was on the Discord. He was like, "You've got to try this. You've got to try it. It's so cool. It's a titanium frame lock for like 80 bucks. It's kind of overbuilt, and it's really good for 80 bucks." I think he did tell me that they were loose bearings, and I just forgot. And I got it, and I thought the action's okay. I bet I could make it better. So I do what I don't normally do this, but I was like, I'm gonna take it apart. Took it apart, and they went everywhere. Loose bearings means literally loose bearings. The bearings themselves will go rolling all over the place, and these things are tiny. There's probably 25 per side. I don't know exactly how many there are, but there are a lot. They went everywhere. I immediately lost 2 or 3 of them, and I ended up, telling somebody on a live giveaway, like, hey, this is a Carter Prime. It still functions. It's missing 2 or 3 of probably 50 bearings. It's still and it'll still function without every single bearing in there. But just so you know, and I just gave it away. And he was like, let me send you mine, because I really want you to review it. And by the way, he did the anno job on this. These don't come like this normally. It's just like a bead black, it's just like a matte titanium finish that it normally comes with. But yeah, they're loose bearings. The action is really smooth, really, really smooth. The flipper tab honestly is shaped well, and the detent is pretty good. There's some other issues with the knife. Honestly, disengagement of the knife is fine. You're close to a position where there might be a double clutch, but once you get it down, you're okay. The action is very responsive, very reliable. I like that a lot. How about carry profile? So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's just fairly thick. Not insane, but it is definitely a thick knife. How about length and height? Up against 2 knives that have awkward carry profiles nobody ever complains about. PM2 and Para 3. You can see there that it's a little longer than the Para 3. It's a little bit shorter than the PM2. Even including the flipper tab, though, in terms of height this way, it's not nearly as tall as either of them. It's really just going to be the thickness and the weight. Let's take a look at the inside. You can pick up my flashlight in the description. No milling whatsoever, and those are pretty... Actually, wait a sec. No, that's just the relief cut. There's no milling on the inside here. Sorry, I'm trying to get it to focus, but yeah, it's a solid titanium scales, and they are pretty thick scales. Let's go ahead and do blade stock thickness. I think this is probably 160 thousandths. It looks very similar to my XM18. So let's go ahead and measure it here. Okay, we're saying 150 thousandths. Let's do it again just to be sure. I'd like to make sure. Yeah, 150 thousandths. So more zero tolerance 0562 territory. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Let me reset this real quick for you guys. Weight coming in at, yeah, about what I thought, 5.19 ounces. Not insane. My full-tie XM18s weigh about 6 1/4, so it's an ounce less than that. Honestly, it's less than I thought. I honestly thought this thing would come in over 6 ounces. It doesn't. Not crazy. Honestly, you know, in and out of the pocket, it's going to be fine. The weight's not too bad. The problem a lot of people are going to have with it is just the overall thickness. The width of it is just a little bit thick. It's kind of a brick, right? Not too bad, though, as far as bricks go. If you've been used to carrying the Para 3 lightweight or bug out, and you wear, you know, light pant material, or you wear skinny jeans, or you wear leather pants or athletic shorts, this isn't going to be for you. For a lot of other people, though, this really isn't going to be a problem at all. This is a great knife to wear with jeans or just heavy-duty pant material. Did we cover all? Oh, we didn't do the hardware check. Let's go ahead and get my tools. I've got some inexpensive options, and I've got some more expensive options. You can find all this stuff down in the description. The pivot is, I'm almost certain, is a T8. I can't remember from taking it apart the first time. Yeah, T8. And the body screws are unfortunately T6, and there are 3 of them. That's too bad. I don't like T6. I also don't like excess hardware. Why don't I like T6? Because they can strip more easily than T8 or a larger head, and the bits also wear out a little bit easier. That's fine. It's not a reason not to purchase the knife. Just be really careful if you're going to take this apart. But I can promise you, the biggest issue with taking this apart is not the size of the hardware. It's the freaking bearings. I know that there are people watching this going, I'm sure I could do it. I got a steady hand. Oh, you're in for it. You're in for it. That is a huge downside to this knife. And any knife with free spinning, or just, free loose bearings. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy here. So we have a very simple, it's just a smooth surface titanium scale, which honestly is pretty nice. There's not really any hint of, there's not much of a suggestion of where you're supposed to put your hands, but you are kind of cramped back here. It's because of how low the flipper tab sits, and honestly, up against the flipper tab, it's really not comfortable, and there's a lot of space between your index finger and where the cutting edge starts, right? So the jimping back here kind of locks you in, and the curvature of the handle kind of does, but I'd be lying if I told you that this was comfortable. That flipper tab is going to dig into your index finger. Honestly, the flipper tab needs to be, a slightly different shape and brought up higher, meaning that the flipper tab will sit, let's see if they shave that down, that it'll just be a little bit lower, which would be fine. You'd still be able to engage it. The D10's fine, right? But man, the way that they've got it here, this is not comfortable. The rest of the knife is fine. I mean, there's not really any, it's just like the amount of pressure that is being put on my index finger or wherever I hold, you can see that. Sorry, I bumped the camera. It's just like really digging, just to get, that purchase on the knife, it's really digging into my hand. If you have smaller hands, maybe it won't bug you that much, but this knife really needed some more suggestive areas for your index finger and a better, flipper tab shape, or a better, flipper tab profile, so that it wasn't so uncomfortable. Up here, the jimping is not aggressive, and it'll definitely engage your thumb. You can kind of rest your finger up here, but again, this area could have been done differently. This area could have been cut to shape your index finger a little bit better. And be more of a choil. And the flipper tab itself, it just doesn't need to be this big, thick shark fin. That's really the majority of the problem there. It just really doesn't work well with the human hand. It's okay. In this position, you're all right, and you can choke up a little bit more. You do run the risk of running your finger up on the blade, so be careful about that. But it is a decent choke up position. The blade is very... it makes me think of the Grimsmo Norseman, honestly. It really does. It is very thick. I mean, in terms of geometry, you have a flat that comes out about 95% the length of the blade, carrying all that thickness out there. It's also, not quite in the middle, but it doesn't leave a lot of room to drop towards the cutting edge. But I believe, yeah, this is hollow ground. So the edge comes to I mean, it's reasonable. I think it'll be just fine for EDC. It's not a grape shaver, right? Those of you who think that anything thicker than the Opinel is too thick, right? But for everybody else who uses their knives for normal knife tasks, yeah, the geometry's, you know, it's going to cut. It does get really thick really fast, so it's not going to be the best at passing through material, but this is a sort of a Wharncliffe, sheep's footy Wharncliffe, whatever the heck you want to call it. So, you know, your draw cuts and things like that, getting into packages, right, it's going to be just fine. More your slicing tasks that, you know, knives with a belly are a little bit better at, not going to be as great. It sure is durable. Not much of a chance you're going to snap the tip on this guy. You know, it is kind of, I mean, this position right here, it is very comfortable, that the blade curvature there. So it's just, it's a unique blade shape. A little bit of wonkiness in the bevel. You can see there, it's just a little bit weird back here. There's a teeny tiny little sharpening choil, and there's kind of, I think, what we call a smile back there. The basic Carter Prime font is, it's just kind of humorous to me. I don't think that needs to be on there. We know what it is, and it's just like, you know, what it's like Times New Roman. And then it says OKC Taiwan. And none of that needed to be on there. If you're going to put it on there, put it back here, like just above where the scale is, right? This is D2 steel, and these are all black wash. There's nothing wrong with the black wash. Would have been nice to see it in tumbled, but that's fine. There's also nothing in the cutting path, which is something that I appreciate. So there you go. The blade's okay. Not my favorite blade shape in the whole world aesthetically. It's a little bit thick. Cutting geometry's okay. It's a couple of wonky areas on the cutting bevel, and then the fonts kind of bug me. That's the recap of the blade. I like the pivot hardware. It looks nice, just simple domed off hardware. Same thing back here on the screws, they're fine. It's got a big titanium backspacer that's very basic, nice and smooth. This is fine. It would have been cool to see this pattern up here on the jimping extended to the backspacer to kind of complete the look back here. But it doesn't have that, so that's fine. I think one of the main benefits of having a very plain, flat surface titanium scale that's just a raw titanium color is that you can do what Connor did and anodize it. You know, he did kind of this fade, this bronze to purple to blue thing, and that's neat. He did it to the pocket clip as well. These are inexpensive knives, and because of the way that they've done the scales and the fact that they are in titanium means that they're, you know, means of experimentation for people looking to customize their knives. So that is definitely a benefit here. Pocket clip, simple popsicle stick clip. It actually works with this knife because the whole thing is just like a big popsicle stick, big oval rectangle, you know. It has no over travel stop. The pocket clip does sit partially on the frame lock, so it kind of works because you're kind of going to be resting your finger on that. So it kind of has its own natural stop. You technically could bend it out, but I don't think that's going to happen naturally. I would have liked to see something like, you know, just some material that they used, right? Even if it's just the hinder or disc, right? The fact that it doesn't have it is not that big of a deal. I don't care that it doesn't have the lock bar insert. That's something that knives, it's nice when they have it, but they don't need it. But I always prefer some type of over travel stop, just so that you don't bend it out. Because if you bend it out, you're done for, right? The knife is not centered, and honestly, the one that I had an issue with centering, and maybe I could turn that. Let's try. I'm gonna try. I know Connor's got this the way that he wants it, but I'm gonna try to turn that and see if it actually brings it back to center. Mine did not want to center up. So here we go. Ready? Let's turn it. Oh boy, it's tight. Yeah, it is bringing it back to center a little bit, right? Now let's see if it still flips. Oh, it does. Oh, that's very pleasantly surprising. Mine did not do that. Mine got tight. It came back closer to center. Okay, well, I'm not going to judge it too bad there. The detent's fine, and there's a little bit of detent lash. Not bad. Little teeny tiny bit. Almost nothing. Side to side play, little teeny tiny bit. Let's see if we can actually remove that by cranking on it a little bit more. Give it another crank there. Do we still have the same level of action? Boy, it is still smooth. Okay. No side to side. How about up and down? Yes. We have I don't know if you guys can see it moving. We have a little bit of up and down play. And honestly, I had that in mind too. I don't think the geometry on the tang is exactly right on these guys. Do I think it's going to slip? Yeah, it's a really a decent amount of movement going on right there. Maybe you've got one of these and yours doesn't have lock rock, right? Side to side play is annoying, but it's nowhere near as big of a problem as up and down play. Why is up and down play a problem? Because it suggests that the lock bar is not engaging the tang of the blade appropriately. And there is a potential for slippage on a frame lock like this. If it's moving, it means it could slip. And if it slips, the blade can come down on your hand or your finger during use, right? And normally you're going to be cutting like this or like this, and the pressure is all going to be on the blade, right? So it's going to be pushing back here on the stop pin, which, by the way, is internal, and it's seated in one place. You can see it running this way right there. That's where the pressure is going to be. But sometimes when you're cutting, you kind of cut and it gets stuck and you move around, right? And that's when, you know, if there is excess pressure on the spine during any type of, you know, I mean, like just doing this, it's not disengaging. But I do worry, right, when I feel lock slippage. Titanium frame locks should not have any slip whatsoever. There should never be up and down play. And because I felt that on mine, it kind of bothers me. If you have one that doesn't have any play, then that's great. Maybe I got the only two in existence that have play. But it does bother me a little bit, even on an $80 titanium frame lock. There are definitely steel frame locks and titanium frame locks that are inexpensive, that have no play. This is a kind of a unique one because there's not a lot of titanium frame locks in this price range, unless you're talking about, you know, Tucson. They have a few. Actually, I think they have quite a few. But anyways, yeah, that kind of bothers me a little bit. So to recap, what are my thoughts on this? Well, it's a pretty big, thick, chunky knife. It's not super heavy. The profile's okay, right? It's kind of chunky. Blade profile is interesting. Kind of looks like a kind of Norseman-y, kind of. The edge geometry is okay. The blade stock is thick, and it's going to be, you know, good for some things, not so good for other things. So pretty much the same as other knives. A little bit of wonkiness in the cutting edge bothers me a little bit. I don't like the T6 hardware. I don't like that there are 3 screws on each side. I really don't like that it's got loose bearings. That sucks. It's going to make it really difficult if you ever have to take this thing apart. It is a nightmare. Even if you do manage to keep all of the loose bearings in one place, it is a nightmare to keep them all together. Me personally, I will never mess with a knife with loose bearings ever again. Cage bearings are better. These loose bearings and the fact that there are so many does create for a really excellent action. But I felt action like this on knives that aren't using cage bearings. You know, maybe it's just that's how they're achieving this action on this inexpensive of a knife, right? Less dependent on perfect tolerances and more dependent on the fact that there are like 50 little ball bearings in there. So that's a huge problem. The clip, by the way, it doesn't carry super duper deep. Not the most shallow thing in the world, but there's quite a bit of knife sticking up out of your pocket. We didn't really cover that. I thought it was off center, but honestly, it's come back. Flipping action is good. It's nice and smooth. Ergonomically, nah. This is like, I'd give this a D on ergonomics, honestly. It's not super duper comfortable. It's a knife that you certainly could throw around if it weren't for the fact that it's got a little bit of lock rock. Now, maybe it has settled. Maybe this lock rock will never be more of a problem than just movement. It's just a I don't trust it completely type of thing, right? Maybe I could go out and beat on this thing forever and it would never disengage, right? Maybe it's more solid than I think. It's just when I feel lock rock, it makes me go, I really, the fact that it's there means that maybe potentially there is a circumstance where this could disengage, and I don't want to go to the hospital and get stitches, so I don't want to use this, right? If you get one of these, if you roll the dice, if you decide to, and by the way, I'll link this down below where you can pick it up. If you decide to roll the dice on this guy and you get one and it has no up and down lock rock, then I think this is probably a pretty good knife for the money. I mean, you get titanium and D2, great action. Bearings aren't going to be the best for throwing it around in the dirt, but you can enjoy the fact that it's got a nice smooth deployment, which can be beneficial, you know, in a utilitarian setting. But yeah, then you've got it. But if you pick one of these up, you get it, and it's got some lock rock, it's a bummer, right? So can I recommend this? I'm on the fence. You know, it's like, it's going to be a dice roll. You know, this is the second one that I've handled that has lock rock. It's not my favorite. It's far from my favorite ergonomic experience. I do like how it looks, and I do like how easy it is to flip. I mean, honestly, the flipping action itself feels like, you know, what I experienced with $200 knives. So it's nice. I think a lot of people like that. If you just want to collect one and you're not going to use it, yeah, knock yourself out. You know, go ahead. But if you're planning on using this, make sure it doesn't have lock rock first. So I think for that reason, you know, because this is the second one, I think I'm not going to be able to put this on my most recommended knives playlist, but it certainly is interesting. I did not know that a knife like this existed from the Ontario Knife Company. The loose bearings thing, I mean, here's the thing. I would choke down the whole loose bearing thing if the lock rock wasn't there. That is the main thing keeping me from recommending this knife, because it's a titanium frame lock with really good action, you know, and decent material, or good materials, and you know, $80, yeah, 100%. If the lock rock wasn't there, that's a great price. I could choke down the ergonomics and the fact that it's got loose bearings for the price, right? But the lock rock's what kicks it over the edge for me. So not recommendable. You're welcome to take a dice roll on it if you want. Like I said, there's links down in the description where you can pick this knife up if you want to. Connor, thanks again for letting me take a look. This was certainly interesting. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you guys enjoyed this review, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.